Thinking about starting a podcast? Before you hit record, make sure that you're actually ready. Take my free podcast readiness assessment and get clarity on your content, consistency, and setup in just a few minutes. After you submit it, you'll also get clear recommendations of what you need to do to make sure that your podcast can reach the ears of the people that it's intended for and make an impact. Click the link in the description now to take the assessment and see where you stand. Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of I Made a Podcast. My name is Chris Creary. I'm so glad that you're here. Now, are you ready to level up your podcast in 2026? Now, this week on the podcast, we're diving deep into a conversation with Krista Snow. She's the visionary behind the Level Up podcast. You might think you know podcasting, but Krista's approach will genuinely surprise you and reveal a whole new way to build community and impact. So you're going to want to make sure that you have your notepad to take notes, and I'm guaranteeing you're going to apply something from what we talked about in this discussion. So sit tight, we're about to jump into this discussion right now. So your podcast is called Level Up Podcast.
Yes.
And you do this with your co-host, whose name is Michelle, correct?
I do it by myself, but the YouTube Live, my co-host is Marcus Medlock.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the audio only podcast, it's a podcast, a mini-series, and each mini-series has its own co-host. So my friend Melissa for narcissism, my friend Leah plus Melissa as well for healing, my friend Jessie Diaz for immigration. So each series has its own co-host that helps me do the series, and each series is 10 episodes or less.
Wow. Okay, so I didn't even realize this before. Okay, so and we're going to get into this, but see, I told you before we got started that I'm going to learn something new from you, even though you're still a new podcaster, and I just did. So basically, it's your podcast, but you have different co-hosts to come on with you that will help facilitate a conversation for each topic or each milestone or each part of your podcast, each series, I guess you call it, right? So there's 10 episode series on narcissism, 10 episode series on immigration, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you have a different co-host.
Well, I don't have any series that are actually 10 episods.
Okay.
Yet. But so for example, narcissism dropped on December 24th when I launched my podcast. It's 4 episodes. Healing, once a week. Now I release episodes every Wednesday. And so healing was 6 episodes. Immigration is currently releasing. So there's 3 episodes out. The next series will be testimonies and stories after immigration is done.
Okay.
So yeah, I have a different co-host, and then for the YouTube Live, the YouTube broadcast every Monday, my friend Marcus, who's not involved in any of the podcast part of things or the Substack Dear Abby advice column we just launched. My partner, her name is Justine, my business partner, is the sort of back end side of things.
Right.
And we decided to launch that recently. So now we have 3 sort of stacks under the umbrella of Level Up. And we have the Substack, which is like the blog part. We have the YouTube Live video part where you can see the faces to the names of the people you hear on the podcast. And so the podcast is audio only, and the video part is the behind the scenes where I bring on the hosts of those different series and we talk about it. And we do the sort of behind the scenes, casual side of things where people can learn who we are and just get involved. So the community I've built, that is the biggest part of Level Up, because I realized as I was building a podcast, I don't want to talk at people.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk and let people listen. So for that, I need a conversation.
Yes.
And it can't be the same co-host for every single series because not everybody's interested in the same topics.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a co-host that has fit in and aligned perfectly at the right moment as I was developing a series. And then we went for it.
Okay. So Krista, I don't know if you can recognize this, but you're actually blowing my mind right now. And
Really?
I'll tell you why.
Thank you, because I'm like so nervous. My hands are like clammy and shaking. I'm like, I've never done this before.
I'll tell you why. The level of thought that goes into a podcast, or the level of strategy that should go into a podcast, it looks like you have been very diligent at that. Now, I know that you've been planning the podcast for a while, but I want to let you know that not a lot of podcasters have such a thought out plan like you do with regards to the other aspects of the strategy surrounding the podcast. They think that they can just turn on a microphone, start recording, start talking, and then everything will be fine. But what I hear from you is a well thought out plan and strategy in order to not only get the message out, but to make sure that it's the content stays fresh, relevant, and that you have subject matter experts chiming in on every single topic. Am I right?
Yes. And I like that you said expert because that's sort of my thought behind it. Like, for example, I went through a narcissistic relationship. My friend Melissa did, but she was a mom of two kids, divorced.
Mm,
I don't have kids. I was never married to him. There's two different perspectives there. And being friends, doing a series shows different aspects of that topic. However, our motto, all of my co-hosts and my motto is we're not experts. But
mm,
because we just want to give different perspectives of our experiences so that people
right.
don't feel alone.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Wow. Okay. You know what? I'm jumping the gun a little bit
Go for
because
it.
I'm getting excited. I'm getting excited. But before I go even further, because I want to get back to this, but in in a nutshell, do you want to just explain to everybody what your podcast is about? So we know it's called Level Up Podcast, and you mentioned a few of the topics or the themes, but there's a lot of people who are listening to this right now who haven't heard of your podcast, or this is the first time they've heard of you. Can you maybe explain to yourself who you are, what your podcast is about, and maybe give them one or two lines of why they should listen to it?
Yeah, sure. Um, so as Chris said, I'm Krista Snow. I live in El Paso, Texas, which is in the very, very far corner of Texas, and no one's ever heard of when they have heard of Texas. Houston's 12 hours away from me. I'm right on the border. Las Cruces, New Mexico, a different state, is 15 minutes that way. Juarez, Mexico, is 15 minutes that way. I live in this sort of place that has a very interesting demographic. It's 86% Hispanic. Um, and so my mom is Hispanic. My dad's a white boy from North Carolina. I sort of like see both sides, having been born and raised here my whole life, but also feeling like I don't fit in certain areas. I was homeschooled, so I never went to school. Um, and as I became an adult and went through certain things about 5 years ago, my life kind of fell apart in a big way. And I left my corporate gig and for a gig that fell through. Then COVID happened. I started helping small businesses. And then I went through a really ugly relationship. And as I was trying to look on YouTube or online for help, because I couldn't afford, professional coaching and therapy and stuff, I didn't really find what I was looking for. And so I wanted to create this podcast to address different areas of my interests. For example, business or neurodivergence. As I've discovered, I'm ADHD. Never knew that. Um, or my personality type and healing and being able to walk down triggers and process emotions. And so as I started investing in different things like mentorship, discipleship, coaching, um, therapy, I received help that now I just want to give others. And then also there's things I love to talk about like business and strategy and stuff too. So I created this podcast to appeal to people who are interested in whatever part of it they want to watch.
Mm,
There's the series on immigration, there's narcissism, there's uh one that I'm working on business. There's one that I'm working on is going to that's interviewing older people for their stories. And a lot of times the older generation sort of gets lost in the sauce of the way that things live, the way that things happen now. So I want to meet people wherever they are and give them a safe place to listen and ask for help if they want. So the audio podcast is extremely, thought out and strategy planned and all of that. But I'm an introvert. So it's audio only. Like I record over video just like I am with you. And I do that for the purpose of having an effective conversation with whoever I'm talking with. But then I pull the audio and I only use video for like the teasers and stuff. So I realized there needed to be a video aspect of it, but I didn't want to do what other podcasters were doing, which is like you listen to the audio podcast and then you could go to YouTube and I'm that person that's like, oh, well, I'd rather watch. Um, but if I can't, but then I get distracted watching and
mhm,
it kind of defeats the whole purpose of why I started a podcast, which is so someone
right.
could just listen. to it. So I wanted to start something different on YouTube, which is the sort of like behind the scenes.
Mhm.
This is the squad, and we just get together on Monday, and you can join in the comments. And I've introduced my family, my co-hosts, um, and so that's the casual behind the scenes side. And then we have the written portion that we just launched less than a month ago, which is like a Dear Abby style advice column where people can write in and ask questions. And I want to bring back the nostalgia of that, the newspaper
Nice.
advice column, or like the Brio magazine as a teenager. I remember loving that advice section because it helped me. There were always things that someone older said, or the advice givers, you know, made me feel loved. So
Mhm.
the whole purpose of Level Up is to create a kingdom community of people that are just doing life together. There's no guilt or shame or judgment. You can come tell your story, you can come listen, and I think the power in the collective is what makes Level Up different. And that's why I would say listen to it, because maybe it's not me that that you end up like listening to. Maybe it's one of the co-hosts that has a similar story to you. And as you listen, um, something and someone meets you in a way that you couldn't find otherwise or hadn't experienced. And when I was looking for help out there on YouTube and the internet, I couldn't really find, for example, like how do you walk down a trigger and process your emotions? Like as a particular personality type or whatever. It's like you can pay someone $15,000 for 3 months of coaching, but if someone could just give you the tools,
Yes.
they can then take those tools. And so I want to bring people together. I can't do it alone. I would have given up. I would have given up if people hadn't come alongside me and
Wow.
become a part of this conversation. And all of these people are working for free. My business partner, Justine Kaiser, she's working for free. And I am trying to build a business, but I'm not monetized yet.
Mm.
I've been planning it for a while, but we just launched, and we're just normal people. We're normal
Yeah.
people that sometimes feel like we don't have a place in this world or we don't belong. And we don't know really who to ask for help. And sometimes people need help, and sometimes they just need a listening ear, and sometimes they need a hug.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
want
This is
Level Up to be a group of people to provide what people need and meet them where they are so that they can take those tools and create a domino effect in their lives
mhm.
and help other people. So that's what I'm doing. I don't know
That
if that
is
was short,
awesome.
but that's
So,
that's the summary.
but that's awesome. I mean, so in a nutshell, it was your podcast was birthed out of your need or something that you
Yes,
needed for yourself.
100%.
But again, it's blown my mind the detail, and we can get into this right now, right? Because you showed me a folder before we started
Mhm,
recording of your plan that has been sitting or that you prepared or your strategy for the podcast that you've been sitting with for 4 or 5 years before you launched your
mhm,
podcast. Now,
mhm.
from what you are explaining to me, and I'm hearing a lot of strategic things that you did that you're doing with your podcast to help get the word out there, right? So you have the audio only version that goes out to all the podcast apps.
Mhm.
You have a behind the
Yes.
scene thing on YouTube where you're capturing video. It's a different content, same podcast, right?
Yep.
That
Every
you
Monday.
every Monday, right? And you also have a Substack newsletter that you're sending out, Dear Abby piece or whatever. What is it called?
Dear friend.
Dear friend. Okay, which is the text version. Again, all underneath the podcast, all underneath your podcast umbrella. So what I'm hearing from you is some very specific things that you decided to do regarding your podcast to help get the word out there. Each one will reach a different person, but they will all lead back to your podcast. Can you talk about some of the things, these strategic things of why you decided to do them? Why, Substack? Why behind the scenes on YouTube? Why did you decide? Like, when we're talking about the plan, the strategy, why did you decide to do it this way?
Because I think different things appeal to different people. Personally, I am not a fan of social media algorithms and the way things work. So when I decided on Substack for the written portion, it was because I've researched monetization opportunities and things like that. So I chose Substack for the potential of being able to create something that gets monetized, that people in the Dear Friend group that my partner Juju, she oversees, they can give to people in the way that they want to, which is if they like to write, there's people that would rather like read versus listen or watch.
Right.
And so there's that. And then there's people that they don't want to listen to a podcast. They'd rather watch a YouTube video. And then there's people that don't care about the YouTube part. They'd rather listen to the podcast. And so I sort of created these aspects to kind of integrate familiarity. So the voices that you hear on the audio podcast, you can then go to YouTube and look for an episode that I've done on a Monday live. And that's the other part. The podcast is not live. It's not live because it's extremely, highly strategically produced, professional. It's edited, all of that. The YouTube, that's us showing up live. And that's terrifying for me as an introvert. So I'm putting myself out there live on display where people can watch and learn who the real, like what the real you, what the real me, the real Marcus, the real Melissa, the real Jesse, like what are they really like? Because on the audio podcast, and I'm talking about these very deep topics sometimes, these, I'm not going to be goofy and giggly. Like I love to laugh. I love to laugh and I'm kind of ridiculous. Like, so that part is not going to shine. And I'm weird. I can be weird on the YouTube live where every Monday we get together and, the world can watch and become a part of it and see the faces behind the names, but also just join the fun. And the podcast is professional and the Substack is professional advice in ways that really will help people's lives. But people don't just need help. They need community.
Yes.
So the Substack, the podcast gives the tools, the resources, the help, the advice, and the YouTube podcast, like the YouTube broadcast every Monday, sort of brings it all together. And I created these aspects because I didn't want to do what, when podcasting started and became popular, then the YouTube part started. So there's the audio podcast, and then you listen to the same thing on YouTube. Well, I've talked to friends that are now doing that, and it's frustrating for them because you edit an audio much different than you're going to edit a video.
Yes.
And the whole reason I started a podcast is because I don't want to be on video. Like, this is scary. So it's kind of that in between that turned out to be perfect because as YouTube has now become very popular, people don't even know what a podcast is because they think it's like for me, a podcast is audio.
Audio. Yes.
But now there's video podcasts. My parents are like, we don't even know what you have. Like you have like what's Spotify? Like they just know about my YouTube. So I wanted to create something that appeals to different people in different ways, but have something that brings it all together and creates the community because people can listen to my podcast, but if I don't know who they are and they don't feel loved, then they're just going to take the advice and will that steamroll into more?
Into anything?
Probably not. Not in the same way, at least. Yeah. And I want to do something different than anyone else is doing because a lot of people are doing the same thing. And I don't like social media algorithms. I defy the fact that you have to do certain things to then get monetized and then you can get censored and whatever. And I'm just like, I want to be the podcast that says you don't have to have a perfect marketing plan and post multiple times a day and all of this stuff to become successful. I'm not monetized. So success is relative, right? Ultimately, I want to be monetized, but I don't want to do it the way that other people are having to do it and getting burned out by it because then they get buried in the algorithms if they don't post for a couple of days. And if you look at my Instagram, Level Up Pod Squad, my Facebook Level Up Pod Squad, you're not going to see content. I don't have a social media manager. I can't afford one yet. I don't have a producer for my YouTube Live podcast. Those things are down the line. But what I'm building is a collective of people that are on fire for what we're doing.
Nice. Oh my goodness. Okay. Like I said before, I knew I was going to learn something from you that I haven't learned from someone else. And I want to say this to you, and I hope you take this the right way. But the way that you are approaching podcasting is different from anyone else that I've ever spoken to. I've
That's my
spoken
goal.
to I've spoken to a lot of people here on this podcast. You are the first person. Obviously, yes, people have posted their podcasts on multiple platforms, but they've
Hmm.
taken the same thing and posted it on multiple platforms. What you are doing is you are posting different things on multiple platforms, all under the same umbrella. And it's reaching different people and exposing your podcast to build, keyword, community.
Hmm.
And that was from my one of my conversations that I had last year with Haley Hayhurst. She's a podcast producer and a podcaster in Seattle. And I recently was interviewed on her podcast. Just everyone go check out. It's called The Podcast Cafe. She mentioned one of the big things that podcasters fail to do is build community. And that is the essential thing that podcasters need to do if they want to be successful. There has to be a place for the people who love your content to come and gather and talk about it and share their insights and what they learned. So, what I'm hearing from you is you are doing all of these things and it's building a strong community. And that I think is very encouraging. And I feel like where you're going to head, where you're going to end up is a good place. You're going to build a very strong podcast with very loyal listeners and a lot of engagement and people who, like you said, don't just receive something and go away and don't do anything, but actually receive some impact in their life. Their life changes and gets better. And I think that's a really good thing. And you talked about it in, I think, your first episode about your plan that you had for 4 years or 5 years now, I think it is. Can you so you've written out this plan and you've made the strategy and I see it playing out now. But can you talk to me about why it took 4 or 5 years for you to come up with this plan and give me some more details about that process of writing the plan and maybe why it took so long maybe for your podcast to even start.
Um, because I think from the beginning it started with me, but it's not about me. It's about community. And so I feel like Level Up is this big puzzle, and the pieces come into place at the right moment as I have been healing, met people, networked in these different Facebook groups across the nation, and just kind of done my own thing. And I always say I built Level Up in the secret in the quiet place. Because like, oh, no one knew what I was doing. When I launched my podcast, my parents were like, "Oh wow,
Yeah. And okay, so
there's a
so
whole plan here."
so
Like,
just for the people who, because again, this podcast, it will go on an audio version. You just held up a folder. It looks like it's about 2 or 3 inches thick,
yeah.
right?
So if I look at this folder, I have aspects of things that I have built. So I have all these pieces for different series, like a series on relationships.
Hmm.
That's not a thing yet, but there are people and plans for when I do that. One of them says politics. One of them says healing. One of them says level up. One of them says the Friends series, organization and PR, Kiki's journey,
Wow.
testimony.
Wow.
There's these aspects that I have put together. There's a document of favorite quotes because we end every YouTube live with a nugget, which is either a piece of advice or a favorite quote, whatever either me, Marcus, or the guest wants to share. And so I have a document of that. I have lists of topics as I was creating a series on healing. What did I want to include? Imposter syndrome, emotions. Like
Mhm.
there were plans that I was building so that what I was building would be done well. There's potential like marketing reels, and there's notes that I've taken that are like there's like
Wow.
charts
Oh my gosh.
charts of,
This is like
of like
so
the
thorough.
business side. Do I want it to be a nonprofit, an LLC?
Well, see, yeah.
Um, is there going to be like yeah, the different aspects of it. So I built this as I healed personally, and I built the healing series
Hmm.
through my own personal journey of collecting the things that helped me, and then getting a co-host and sort of like you said, expert experts to come alongside so that we can provide a comprehensive full scale series. I don't want to just talk for 4 episodes about what I think about narcissism. I want to do research and then do it with someone else who has a completely different narcissistic relationship experience, like divorced from one with 2 kids,
Hmm.
single mom, and I want to do it with her so we can share 2 totally different perspectives. And then we can each do our own research and come together and then talk about it. So
This
there's
is awesome.
hours and hours of planning before I've ever done a series. I don't just sit in front of a computer and talk because, first of all, I'm an introvert. Like, I'm not an extrovert. And I don't want to just sit here and talk. I want to help people
Yeah.
effectively with the highest quality possible.
This is so, so encouraging. And you see what you're doing though, making sure that you do the research. Cause so I have a couple pet peeves with podcasts. Number one is like the audio quality, right? That's like my number one pet peeve. My number two pet peeve is when people get on a microphone and they start to speak about something without having done the research. And they
Hmm.
speak as if they are experts. Yet they are far from experts. And then all of a sudden they're sharing their opinions and people are believing it and running with it like if it is the truth, which they haven't even done any research on the topic. So what you are doing, I mean, I can't say how much I love it because there's no words to describe it because it's absolutely important for podcasters. If you are in a podcast where you are trying to help people, that you do your research. And so what you're
Yeah.
doing is really encouraging. Krista, this is you're blowing me out of the water with like what you've done with your podcast, and it's still new. It's still new. So
But I
like
think it's so important, the research, like you said,
for
like
sure,
my
absolutely.
friend Melissa and I, when we got together and talked about narcissism, we planned and then we did our own research and we got back together and talked again so that when we got together and recorded, we could talk about things like not just our emotions and this felt a certain way, but
Hmm.
we could share what we learned in our research and connect that with scientific facts, like when you experience something, what is the reaction in your body? Because the hip, like the amygdala swells and fight or flight mode, the hippocampus shrinks, which is your rational reasoning. Those things lead to you feeling the way that you do, but those things also can lead you to become someone you didn't realize you were. And so there's all these factors that people need to understand so that they don't feel down on themselves. There's something they have no control over. They just need to learn how to walk through it. And if they have a community alongside that knows what that's like, they can do it so much easier because they have someone to come to ask for help.
That's
I put our email at the end of every single podcast episode because I want people to reach out if they need it.
this is so great. Okay, so again, everybody who listens to I Made a Podcast knows that I do this, but I'm going to encourage everybody to go into the description, please, and listen to Krista's podcast, Level Up Podcast. Okay, all the links are down there below. YouTube as well, and also if you like reading articles on Substack, you have Dear Friend that you can go and read. However, you want to connect with Krista, whichever way is best for you, she has covered it in detail. She has a strategy and a plan, but she's here to help, right? So I would encourage everyone to connect with you. This
You
is
can go to
so
leveluppodSquad.com.
right. All the links. Yeah.
Disclaimer, apparently Wix changed some stuff and the website now shows up okay on like certain computers and not
Okay. Good.
okay on others, PC, Mac, whatever. Access it on your phone and it's fine.
Okay.
But that's where you can see the different aspects, the links to our social media. There's even a video of sort of my journey of creating this, and
This is
um,
awesome. This is
it
awesome. I
has
love
the
it.
bios of the squad.
Love this. I mean, the thoroughness and the strategy and the plan that you took, that you like, this is so refreshing. I've never heard this from anyone else that I've interviewed. Now, one of the things that I did hear though, from many people, many podcasters have had this, been in this place, and you mentioned it a couple times, right? Of being an introvert.
Mhm.
Would you say, is that your biggest challenge with doing all of these things with
No,
your podcast?
no,
No,
technology.
technology. Okay.
Technology, 100%.
Specifically, let's talk about your biggest challenge, technology, right? So it's not being an introvert, right? So you've overcome that challenge. What about technology is the most challenging to you, and how
I
did you
mean, I
overcome
wouldn't
it?
say I've overcome it. I'm just saying technology, oh my gosh, it's a beast. Having high quality audio for both me and my guests has been hard. So there's this microphone. I can send you the link so you could put it in the description. It's like $30 on Amazon. My first audio editor was an audio engineer. So she looked up specs of the cheapest microphones that she could find that had the best quality so that I could buy them for my co-hosts. Because
Mm,
I have a Samsung microphone, but I couldn't afford to buy. And microphones are expensive.
yes.
But I wanted to do that for the people that do this with me. And I needed it to, you know, provide high quality, because then at the back end with the editing part, that makes it easier for the
Easy.
audio editor.
That's right.
And it's hard. It's hard. I highly recommend you use headphones
Hmm.
so that your sound coming out of your computer is not picked up by the microphone. Um, it makes it more expensive when the audio editor has to do things like that. The microphone, the headphones, I use Riverside. I started with Zoom and then I switched to Riverside because of the quality in general, not even necessarily the options, because I don't use like the AI magic clips. I cannot
Right.
stand AI. Any clips it gives me, I would have to change anyway. So I make my own clips.
Right.
I watch my episodes and I make my own clips from scratch because the
It just
Riverside
works better
can't
for you.
pull the best parts
I heard.
when it doesn't even know that.
Yeah.
And so there's those aspects. I think Riverside is probably the best platform because you don't then need a hosting platform. Like I had Podbean
Mm,
before I launched. Here's another piece of advice for people. Do not start paying for something before you've launched. Because when I started, I was like, oh, let me get Podbean. Let me start paying for this. And I didn't even end up using it for months. And don't waste money. Don't waste money. But you need if it depends also on where you want to your podcast to be featured. And Riverside is kind of like the one-stop shop. So that you don't have to have and also I think it's the audio quality is better
okay.
and editing is easier if you have to do it yourself, which currently I'm actually doing my own audio editing.
Okay.
Not a pro, but I've always wanted to learn. I
Hmm.
tried to learn. There was a couple like what are the popular ones that it starts with a D?
Descript.
Um, Descript, and then there's another big one that Audacity that my
Audacity. Okay.
friends used, and I'm just not a tech person. It's very hard for me to figure out how to do things like the buttons right there. Krista doesn't see it though. Like,
Mm.
and so I needed help from a user friendly
Right.
platform, and Riverside was down the day I launched my podcast on October 20th,
Oh
like
no.
my YouTube live. Riverside was down because of the Amazon Web Services crash.
Oh yes.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
day
Yeah.
Krista Snow launches Level Up after 4 years.
Oh no.
So ask me about Riverside and I'm gonna give you my like reaction, but also at the back of my mind, I'm like, if I had stayed with Zoom, I wouldn't have had those
Didn't
issues the
happen.
day I launched, and I couldn't even go live on YouTube.
Oh boy. That's what the
So
chances, eh?
anyway, it's fun. It's fun. It's a whole journey.
Oh my goodness. So technology is the biggest challenge that you've
Yeah, and audio
consistently overcome.
quality.
Right.
Audio
You know,
quality is very hard because you have to make sure that you select your microphone and your
right.
speakers. Make sure because I've done all the things and then not realized that like it wasn't picking up from my microphone, it's
Oh
picking up from the
no.
laptop. And I
Oh,
didn't know until the end of the recording. So my guest sounds great and I don't. Just listen
oh.
to the immigration number 3
Yeah, I did
on
listen to that one
Spotify that
actually.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, that means that's what happened.
So you know what? One of the things that I recommend to it's like I said, I'm a podcast coach, and I have clients who are podcasters. One of the tools that I recommend is a tool called Alphonic, Auphonic, and I can send you a link afterwards. This tool it's an online web-based tool. What it does is it takes your audio and it will enhance it for you, bring it up to broadcast level quality. So if, for example, I have one client who records on her microphone from her laptop, and it doesn't sound good because even if, she records it on Zoom, it doesn't sound broadcast quality. But I take that audio and I upload it onto this platform and I click process. You could level out the audio. So if there's two different volume levels between yourself and the other person who you're talking to, or if there's like echo in the room, or, it will remove the echo, bring the level of the audio up so it's balanced and it equalizes it and it enhances it so it sounds like broadcast level. And I always recommend they should be sponsoring me for sure because I tell everybody about this platform. Um, they give 2 hours free every single month, so you can actually use it. But then they like give like a little jingle for their platform at the beginning, so you have to like cut that out if you don't want it in your podcast. But it's a really really good platform, inexpensive if you want to pay for it, and the quality of the audio, which is the most important thing for me when it comes to podcasting, it brings your audio quality to top notch. So I will send you a link, and hopefully
This
that
is
will help
super
you.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, because I actually have to, there's an episode that is releasing next week and I'm still not.
I will send it to you. I will send it
I
to you
need that.
before
I
we
need
finish.
that.
Well, when we finish today, and you can try it out. Like I said, it gives 2 hours free, so you can use it like right away. Like I said, just
Mhm.
cut off. They add like when you after you finish using it, they add like a little jingle at the beginning and the end to promote themselves on the free version. So you just need to cut that off, and
Okay.
then you can upload your audio. And trust me, you're going to be amazed at the quality. All right, I'm going to send that to you,
Awesome.
and I'm giving that one. That's free for everyone else that's listening to this conversation. If you're having challenges with your audio, and if you want to bring it up to that broadcast level quality, use alphonic.com. It's an amazing tool. All right. Listen, Krista, this has been a great conversation, and like I said, I've learned so much from you. And so I want to make sure that everybody gets this though. Like, you are a new podcaster. Technically,
Mhm.
you started your podcast in December, but the things that you have thought about, the diligence that you have showed to prepare and to get where you are, and the strategy around getting the momentum or people talking about your podcast and the different ways that you're promoting your podcast or engaging with people is absolutely amazing. And kudos to you for being diligent enough to come up with such a thorough plan, because trust me when I say this, I haven't spoken to anyone in the 3 seasons that I've done this podcast that has had a thorough plan like you have. And it's not a slight on anybody else because some of those podcasts are doing great. But
Right.
for you to be at the beginning and have such a great plan, it's really, really amazing. And the podcast is going to grow. It's going to get that community in place. You're going to see it because you've taken the time to build a structure. And I
Well,
want
if
to
you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
plan to fail.
Mm.
Trust me.
So I
I,
have a
I want to
plan
make sure.
and we're just figuring it out still.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's key though, because even though you have your plan, you still have that attitude of a learner and you figure things out as you continue to go. Right. So for those people who are new to podcasting, I hope they do what you have done. If they haven't done it before, I hope they get to it now where they've created like a strategic plan of how they're going to get the word out about their podcast and then continue to learn as they continue to grow their podcast. I think that's the big thing that I'm taking from this conversation. We're just about to wrap up. I want to ask, is there one key takeaway from your experience that you want to share with anyone else that is listening right now that you have learned? Maybe it's something that you heard you should do are that you said, "Oh, I'm not going to do that because it doesn't work for me." Or maybe there's something that you learned as you started your podcast that you are absolutely going to do going forward. But is there one key takeaway that you have for everyone that's listening right now?
Yeah. Um, one of the things that a lot of podcasters get stuck in is that paralysis by
Yes.
analysis, and I'm no different. Like I said, I blend for years and years. I could have started recording episodes earlier, regardless of when I was, but I'm kind of that person that like I need to make sure I know everything before I start. And I realize you can't learn things until you actually start, because then things are going to happen that you couldn't have prepared for, whether that be with the platform or um the audio things, not realizing that, the microphone, the input output wasn't selected correctly before the meeting. There's things that you can do if you just start. Even if you don't start your podcast and launch it, start recording. Don't hold off on that part, because you will learn a lot. And also getting in front of the camera was something that I put off for as long as possible. And it doesn't help. It just prolongs the things you're gonna end up learning anyway, and you can learn that in parallel while you're working on other things. If you start just recording some test episodes or an episode that you think you might wanna use, and don't know, just try it. Just test it out, because you're gonna learn the tech side, and it's really important that the whatever you do put out there is quality audio so that people will listen.
Yes.
And if you don't test and trial all that stuff, you end up like me, where I have a lot of episodes that don't sound great. But also, that's what I want. I want people to see I'm just a normal person. A lot of people are like, I'm going to do a podcast, and then they get sponsors and they have everything perfect, and then it sounds great or whatever. No, like mine, there's pieces that sound like a mess because my guest sounds great and I sound muffled the whole time. Um, but that's life. And so I want to build this and let people watch as I build this, and they can help build it with me if they want. But if you want to start your own thing, start. So people told me that. YouTube told me that. All my playlists of stuff I learned told me that. And I was like, no, I'll start when I'm ready. No, get started. You will learn a lot that you didn't know that you needed to learn.
That's awesome. Awesome. Yes. I don't know, like this has been such a great conversation. And again, you are new to podcasting in terms of when you launch your first episode, but
Mhm.
the value of what you shared in this conversation was worth about 10 years worth of podcasting experience. I don't think you really recognize that yet, but you have a lot of good insight. And that's something that I say to everybody. When you are going to start a podcast, don't wait for things to be perfect. Just start and learn as you go. And you'll do this too. When you get to episode number 50, you will look back and you will listen to episode number 3 when the mic was muffly the entire time, and you're gonna be like, "Oh man, listen to that." Oh, and you'd probably be like, "Was that me?" But then you will compare it to where you are at episode number 50, and you'll see
Mm,
all of the growth, all the things that you've learned, and that will never happen if you don't start,
yes.
right?
Well, and
So,
speaking of 50, I just got an email yesterday that I officially have 50 plays on my
yeah.
Spotify.
And you know what? Make sure you take that email, print it, frame it, because mark my words, okay?
It was a
You
good
you have
feeling.
you have built something, the foundation for what you have built. In a year's time, you're gonna look back at that email that you got from Spotify that said you had 50 plays, and you're gonna probably receive another one from them and said, "Hey, you just crossed 50,000," or maybe
I hope so.
500,000 or
I
whatever
hope so.
email
So
they
I
sent.
can pay everybody that's helping me with this.
Right. Because the reason why I can say that with confidence is because of the foundation that you've built, right? The
That means a
strategy,
lot.
the thoroughness that you have taken, the diligence that you've showed to build the foundation for your podcast. That is the absolute right way to approach it. And you're going to see that it's going to, as you continue to be consistent and release content, you're going to get a lot of downloads. You're going to get a lot of people listening and sharing. And not only you're going to get people listening, but people are going to get results and the impact of what you are doing with your podcast. People are going to see that impact in your lives. Trust me, because from what I heard from you, you're doing everything the right way. So
Thank you. That means a lot.
I have been
God
blown
willing,
away.
it'll be a success.
It is a success already because you've already started. It is a success already. right? So I always end up every single episode by saying this, and I remind everybody that the best time to start a podcast was 10 years ago. And the second best time is right now. So
I love that.
please go, everyone out there, listen to what Krista says. Go make your podcast happen now. Don't wait for things to be perfect. Go and make your podcast happen now. And make sure you listen to next week's episode of I Made a Podcast. Thank you for tuning in today, everyone. Peace.